welcome to another video here on our All About You channel. So for today's video, I just want you to go ahead and start off by asking you, have you ever been in a situation where you considered that the situation was unfair? What did you do, or what do you usually see people do in an unfair situation? Usually the first thing is to try to defend ourselves, to explain what happened, explained why we think the situation is unfair, right? But the problem is, what is our basis on an unfair situation? Especially when it comes to things in our spiritual life. And I'm not speaking about, the unfair things that the devil does, to steal, kill, and destroy. I'm talking about situations that God allows us to go through that initially our first reaction we think, wait a second, this isn't fair. So how do we react to this? And I want to go ahead and share with you an example I was reading. Not an example, but a verse I was rereading here. And it says like this. So it's about Cain and Abel, right? And Cain was Abel's older brother. So Abel was like the little brother, right? So they both came and brought an offering to God. And then here it says in Genesis chapter 4, verse 4, Abel brought of the firstborn of his flock and of their fat. And the Lord respected Abel and his offering. But he did not respect Cain and his offering. And Cain was very angry, and his countenance fell. So Cain, at this moment right now, thought it was unfair. And the Bible doesn't tell us if there were previous times that they had to bring an offering, but I'm guessing it must have been previous times where he brought an offering. But this time he brought it, God didn't accept it. And that made Cain angry. And I don't know but usually as the older sibling, in my family I'm the oldest sibling, usually the oldest sibling has this sort of responsibility, or usually they're giving the first things, if it's the parents' first child, they're the first one that gets the first car, that gets the first of things, they're the ones that get the new clothes, and then they give the hand-me-downs to the other siblings. So usually the firstborn, they have this sense, that they're special in a way, because they're the firstborn. But in this situation, God accepted Cain's little brother's offering. He wasn't that little, but to an older sibling, your younger siblings will always be the little ones. So in that moment, it's like this situation was attacking the pride of Cain because his younger brother had his offering accepted, but he didn't like it. So then he ended up acting based on his emotions. His emotions were of anger, of trying to get revenge. So what did he do? His anger was so profound that he did the unthinkable, and he murdered his brother. He murdered his brother just because of that. And let's just continue. I'm going to say the other part now. So then Cain murdered his brother, and then God appeared and said to Cain, he said to Cain, where is Abel, your brother? And what did Cain reply? Pay attention to his reaction and imagine his face, or maybe in this moment. So Cain answered, I do not know. Am I my brother's keeper? So Cain wasn't just speaking to another person. He was speaking to God. He was speaking to God, and he replied this way. So in that moment, you can even sense that Cain was angry at God as well. And he was just pure angry, and he was acting on his emotions because of these things, right? Because he considered it unfair. And now bringing it to our lives, sometimes we go through situations where initially we consider it's unfair, right? But why do we consider it as unfair? Because we base it on what we think. We only see our little bubble, sometimes as human beings, the tendency is to lean more to the selfish side. So we see our area. We don't think about the person next to us. We don't think about it initially, automatically, right? So in this moment, Cain was just thinking about himself. It's like about his pride, about, I don't know, his reputation, just thinking about himself. And he reacted in the wrong way based on his emotions. So because he didn't place himself in the shoes of his brother, and usually they say, to always place yourself in the shoes of other people, then yeah, you would think, oh, that was so sad because Abel got killed by his brother, right? Imagine Abel. I don't even know what his reaction was actually, but you usually put yourself in other people's shoes, or that's what we try to do, right? But there's some situations, and God was showing me this some time ago. There's some situations that we go through that our initial reaction may be emotional, but that doesn't mean that we're reacting emotional. Like if you get bad news, you get that little shock, but then a few seconds later you're like, no, snap out of it. It's tied up. You focus on what's important, and going back and putting your emotions aside allows you to focus on what's important. And one of the things that God showed me is, yes, sometimes there's moments you have to put yourself in other people's shoes, but even more important than that is to place yourself in God's shoes, to see a situation the way God sees it. There was a situation that I went through some time ago, and I was putting myself in that person's shoes. So I was, in my mind, that person was going to act in an emotional way. And so I was preparing myself to react to that emotional way. Do you know what I mean? So for example, you have to give bad news. You have two choices. Either you're gonna prepare, oh no, this person's gonna react emotional, so I gotta be careful, right? Or you can react in the way God would react, right? If you place yourself in God's shoes, no, I have to do this because God is in control. Even though I don't understand what's going on, I'm going to react the way God wants me to react. And how does God want us to react? By faith. In every situation we go through, especially when we consider things that are not fair, or sometimes we see things, people that are newer in the church, or maybe you're in the church and you're still not an assistant, or you see people that are coming, like they came yesterday to the church and God is already counting on them. You could either say, oh, well, that's it. God's counting on the newer people more than the older ones, or oh no, the church has favorites, or the pastor has a favorite, he likes that person more. So in this moment, you're acting in an emotional way, just like Cain reacted, right? And you're not seeing the bigger picture. So in those moments when you see yourself, oh wait, the situation, I'm catching myself, you're examining yourself, and you see that that's a reaction you shouldn't have, you should stop and place yourself in God's shoes and have good eyes towards that person. Because when we think things are unfair, it's a downward spiral to emotions, right? So cutting things to the point. So when we place ourselves in God's shoes, we're able to see every situation in a spiritual way. And when we see these situations in a spiritual way, we're able to use our faith. And the devil doesn't want us to see things this way. He doesn't want us to see situations in a spiritual way. So he's always going to try to make us react according to our emotions, try to complain, trying to get satisfaction with people, trying to explain things to get justified. And it doesn't matter, because when we're in God's hands, when our life is in God's hands, we have this faith, we have this trust. It's like this certainty inside of you that you can close your eyes and you know that anything that God allows to happen in your life, even if you may not like it, He has a purpose behind it. Some situations are going to be difficult, but we can't avoid them or run away, because God's going to use the situation to mold us, to make us mature. And then by changing us, by making us better for Him, God will be able to save more souls through us, okay? So this is something that I wanted to share with all of you, to always place ourselves in God's shoes, to not think that just because you've been in the church longer or you're more experienced per se, that you deserve something. No. Even if we get, like in the New Testament, they talk about the talents. Some people would get 5 talents, some 2, some would get only 1, right? So it's not that there's a preference or some people are more special than others, right? And even if there was a preference, if God had a preference of people, I'm sorry, but so what? If my goal is to be saved, to be with God, I don't really focus who's gonna be more special or who's gonna, get extra credit with God. Does it make sense? I don't focus on that because my goal is to make it to heaven, and all of us, our goal should be to make it in heaven. So any situation that comes to lead us away from our main goal, which is our salvation, we have to be watchful. We have to be spiritually alert to these situations. And unfortunately, the story of Cain and Abel is the first murder in the Bible that was mentioned. It's really bad, but in our situation, there's situations that can also cause us harm if we react based on our emotions, okay? So whenever you think something is unfair, bottom line is it doesn't matter, because to God, if God is allowing that situation, it's for a reason. And we don't understand it now, but we know that all things work for the good of those who love God. Okay? So there's no such thing as an unfair situation when we're in our journey with God, right? So this is something that I wanted to leave with all of you, and I hope it blessed you as it blessed me, okay? So always, we need to place ourselves in God's shoes and see a situation through His perspective. Okay, until next time, God bless.